Hey there, most of you know who I am, but for the few of you who don't, I'm LioConvoy. I've been operating in the art commentary and slideshow commentary spaces here on YouTube for about 3 years now. But I know you've seen the title of this video, so let's get into it a bit. Sprocket is a well-known member of the ACC and SCC spaces. Often large enough in following and respected enough in argumentation to be considered a figurehead or authority in these spaces. Now, that may not be the objective truth, but that's at least a perception. And perception does matter a lot in these conversations. She's been operating in these spaces for about a decade, but primarily rose in prominence in 2018 when she debunked false allegations against another ACC member whose origin was in the DeviantArt ranter space, SpotterTech. At the time, he was accused of many things, such as predation, and Sprocket, with some help, was able to demonstrate that it was a calculated scheme behind the scenes and being pushed by some malicious actors. From there, she went on to cover multiple situations that gained traction or even lend assistance and credibility to others who also operated in these spaces. However, no one's past is spotless, and it seems quite a bit of Ponders is coming under scrutiny, and most of it seems to be valid. Before I continue, I want to be clear. There's no credible accusations of Ponder being anything like some form of predator or creep. I want to make that crystal, as many things get warped around when it travels through the grapevine. So, don't do that. There's still quite a bit being dug into, but here's the issues we currently have on the plate. Her multiple videos on Akumu, who was 16 at the time, which seems to have many issues within them. I'm not going to list them off here, as he's made several videos on the topic, and it's better for you to hear it from him. I'll list his playlist in the description. I know he's a contentious figure and uses words a lot of people don't like, but I recommend shutting those biases down and looking at the data he provides. Part of the issue with people's biases is the fact that Ponder's videos on him inform them to make opinions on the man that aren't accurate. But that's all I'll see on my end on that. Her video on Goat Cato, who is 15 at the time. Goat has done at least one stream going over that video with fresh eyes. That's also linked in the description. And that old video is not good. Her being aware of Spotter requesting nudes of a 14-year-old when he was 18, with him listing her current age as 15 in the conversation, and her giving him ideas to discredit this accuser. I will state, though, that it's pretty obvious Spotter came to her putting on a victim act. You can see this partly covered in Toastify's current video on Spotter, and his upcoming one later this week. On top of that, there's her talking in her server, Fiendish Cavern, about Spotter's ownership of CP, and multiple people just sitting on it. While it's true they all told her it's not her responsibility to handle it due to her own life's issues, the greater problem is that no one else brought it forward. And I do mean no one. No one found out about it until I released that video in 2023 with the recording of Spotter admitting it himself. Even people like Manga Common, who is very vocal about how it needed to go public, didn't bring it to me or anyone else when he discovered it in 2020. Odder still that so many people who were in that call in 2020 continued to be around and interact with Spotter when he was brought back in the server a month later. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one. Manga's public apology for not speaking up is also in the description. And yes, Ponder's also going to be held accountable for letting him back in a month after she knew what he did, which I also don't understand. Other notable things are that, as her server, Fiendish Cavern, is further audited, it's not good. There were so far 6 minors in there, and the adults there did not mind themselves. To be clear once again, I have no evidence or suspicion of predation there. And to my knowledge, when others like V Omega were exposed, they were removed immediately. But it's still not good that this happened. It's become very clear to me that one of the reasons the FCK wasn't exposed earlier is because this garbage behavior was normalized when it shouldn't have been. That's not me making an excuse for it either. You all know how I feel about that type of stuff. I'm merely stating an objective fact. Thankfully, this isn't predator hunting, so I don't have to be concerned with that. But usually when we ran into servers like this before, we're able to snatch up moderation and put a stop to it. This case is different though, as it's a dead server, and the minors became adults long ago. So there's no real way to actively correct it. We're also dealing with the fact that this server had a lot of names in the community as a whole, and none of them took issue with what happened in this server. We're not sure what to do about that yet. The primary person pouring through it is Yin the Yan, whose link is in the description, and she's only currently gotten through 2018. You know what date it is now, you should know it's going to take quite a bit of time. On top of all that is what happened between her and Chuli. Ponder's lack of action when it came to Fey Ghost, and leaving Chuli to deal with that monster alone is certainly condemnable. And that's not even taking into account the fact that Ponder prioritized going after literal minors instead of dealing with the literal lunatic in her spaces. There's other issues concerning that as well that Shuli is going to speak on, and I encourage all of you to listen when it comes out. But it's not good. I'll say that much. It's important to try and remember that not every content creator is how they are put out in their own content. For every person like, say, Vlad and I that are essentially the same between our content personalities and everyday lives, most people aren't. Videos are scripted, lines are edited, and you're being shown a polished idea of that individual. While trust is something creators should build with their audience through honesty and transparency, especially when you're wrong, it's a step a lot of people miss or are completely ignorant to. It's best to not get too attached to content creators at all, and especially when you haven't seen how they respond when they're under fire. You're going to be seeing a lot come out in the next month or so. When it comes to Ponder and her response, I'm going to ask you all to give her space and time to put that together. There's still information coming down that'll need to be addressed, and putting a response and apology out when something could be missed isn't wise. Additionally, Ponder is dealing with more, and worse, scenarios and accusations than even I did last year. Back then, I had a lot of trusted people that helped me gather info and navigate it. Ponder doesn't have that. The amount of people directly helping her can be counted on, well, one finger. There's also the fact that she's currently on 2 new medications, and it's going to take time for those to resolve and take effect considering the fact that it's anxiety-based. And yes, I have her permission to mention that. I also need to be clear that I thoroughly believe she owes conversations to some of the people she's hurt, and that's a matter of scheduling that in. It's going to take some time, so I'll ask that it be given. If you need a more tactical reason to do so, look at it as giving someone the chance to prove that they're worth the patience, and act accordingly when the response comes. Other than that, what should you, the audience, do? A few things, I think. First, we have to recognize that while values and opinions change over time, we can't magically sit here and play pretend that what was in her videos is now news to ACC people and the audience, especially not creators. That's just not reality. It's why people flock to her to begin with. So please don't morally grandstand over it as though it's news when you've watched them years ago. React and voice your thoughts now that you're older, absolutely, and if you owe other people apologies for assumptions and statements made, then I feel that's a good place to start. Another thing I recommend other people do is keep your eyes open. Watch how the other creators in the space are responding to all of this, especially compared to last year. See if they're consistent, and if not, measure that accordingly and ask why. That'll give you a good barometer on who you can trust in a situation as strenuous as this. If they don't recalibrate their current actions or walk back previous ones clearly and publicly, then I'd recommend holding them to their own standards loudly and publicly. Especially if they were happy and willing to cover situations less troubling. What about me, though? Well, I'm helping where I can. I've been given plenty of time and space to consider how to approach these things, and lately I've been giving as much good faith as possible, which many of you have seen through situations like the Nezzy and Susie dramas. It's better to give someone in a situation like this more mercy instead of less, at least by my own standards. To be clear, that's not a value I expect or will enforce on anyone else, especially not the people Ponder has harmed. That's just my angle. If you want up-to-date information or to discuss this more in depth, we've got a thread in my server about it. If you're 18 and older and want to see what's going on, I encourage you to join it, as its link is also in the description. I would recommend joining if you're a person Ponder is hurt as well, as nothing should be missed if it can be helped. I don't really have much more to say here, so I'll let you all go for now. Keep your eyes and minds open as we go forward to determine, as a community, what needs to be done in these spaces. Take care.